This video is sponsored by Squarespace.
Hello Internet, Taliesin here, and today we are talking World of Warcraft, The War Within, and we are talking the final boss of the expansion, who is, of course, we don't know. Who is the final boss of The War Within? It's a question I love to ask before any expansion, and like Machine Gun Kelly at a weed buffet, I just can't help myself. I need to make this video every time, and have done since Legion, with, varying results. And this time out, the question is more intriguing than ever, as it's complicated by the fact that The War Within isn't a normal expansion, is it? It's the jumping off point for the World Soul Saga, a multi-expansion trio of stories that all need final bosses, and which will eventually have presumably the biggest boss of all at the climax of the last Titan. So join us as we line up the candidates and rate them to decide who we will be squaring off against at the end of the last raid and discover who is the final boss of the War Within. Okay, go, 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 go. Xal'atath. Let's start with the most obvious answer, the name on everyone's lips. And not just because you kiss her body pillow goodnight every evening. The sexy void elf void mummy that Blizz have made the face and voice of all their marketing for the expansion so far, Xal'atath. This purple baddie, and I do mean baddie, is everywhere this expansion, from trailers to key art to merch. Oh yeah, the game, she's in the game too. I'm gonna bet you any money you like Blizz will launch a $600 statue of her between now and September. Now, I've made no secret of my love for Xal'atath on this channel ever since she first appeared in Legion, where she was the Shadow Priest artifact weapon, the seductive voice trapped within the blade of the Black Empire. We don't know loads about the origin of the blade. Some theorize it is the remains of a forgotten old god devoured by its kin, or the claw of Y'Shaarj himself, but we do know it dates back to the Black Empire, the period of Azeroth's history when the world was dominated by the old gods, watching over their vast cities and nations of tentacly servants as they burrowed through the planet's crust, attempting to corrupt the world soul within. We know Xal'atath was housed inside the blade since at least the fall of the Black Empire. She is the ancient and terrible force that the Word of the Conclave refers to in its history of the blade, which has passed through the hands of mortals like the One Ring, corrupting and manipulating them to its own ends every time. Shadow Priest players will remember Xal'atath whispering to them throughout the Legion expansion, and even at the time, I remember highlighting her as the most important and powerful of all of the artifact weapons, predicting in our What Will Happen to Our Artifact Weapons video that out of all of them, she was the one most likely to return later down the line in the form of an enemy that we would have to fight. Taliesin was right. In Battle for Azeroth, everyone was introduced to the joys of Xal'atath as War Campaign questing saw us recover the blade and follow her instructions to stop followers of Zotth from using artifacts scattered around Kultiras to summon a scouring storm. One of the artifacts, a Void Stone, is being empowered by a high elf priestess called Inanis, who we kill, and then Xal'atath inhabits her body. So she looks like this now, and we take all the artifacts to Zotth and trade them for the release of Xal'atath from the blade, although the real trade seems to be us. That's how we get the Eye of Zotth, which any true follower of the Void still wears to this day. Xal'atath exits triumphantly into a Void portal with the promise that we'll meet her again, but we don't see her again until Dragonflight and the climactic cinematic of the Dawn of the Infinite's mega dungeon. It's here that Iridikron explains his cunning super objective and plan to endanger the World Soul, that the Titans will come to defend it and he can punch them in the face. Yeah, that's his plan, and honestly, I kinda respect it. But as he disappears into a suspiciously voidy looking portal, we catch a glimpse of an elven looking silhouette lurking in the darkness beyond, who many players speculated was Xal'atath, and who indeed turned out to be Xal'atath upon the reveal of the War Within. And she looks like this now. This means that War Within will be the 4th WoW expansion that Xal'atath has appeared in. 5th if you count Classic Season of Discovery, where she is very obviously the shadowy figure that helps you upgrade your gear, making her the baddie that has received the most build-up in WoW ever after Garrosh. She absolutely is the antagonist of the War Within, plain and simple. She kicks off the action at the beginning of the expansion with a big event, and the whole of the leveling campaign is basically us running around trying to catch up with her and undo the damage she is unleashing. So surely she will be the final boss of the War Within, right? It's reasonable to assume that she is. It all makes perfect logical sense, and that's the end of the video. Except the thing is, I think most people would see it as being a huge waste of a very cool baddie to have Xal'atath killed at the end of this expansion. Midnight, the next installment of the World Soul Saga, is supposed to be all about a huge void invasion of Azeroth and attack on the Sunwell in Kel'Thalas. And would you really want a void invasion without Xal'atath? And yet, obviously, we could still fight her as the final boss without killing her. Goodness knows we've done that before. But I don't know, my feeling is that Blizzard must know they've hit the jackpot with Zal. The community love her. She's more marketable than any other character they've come up with in a generation. Even if they were planning on having her eat it at the end of the War Within, I'm pretty sure those plans will have been changed by now. Which would be great because there is still so much to explore with Xal'atath. Like, what even is she? Why was she trapped in the dagger in the first place? And by whom? If Zotth could release her at any time, why didn't he? She says, it's been so long since I took a mortal form. Does this mean she was immortal originally, or that she just inhabited a few in her time before being daggered? Personally, I'm really hoping we get a pre-expansion animated short giving us some background on her origins, like we did with Ashara before BFA. Although, equally, I suspect that Blizz will want to keep her true form up their sleeves for a big reveal later on. There's also the small matter of what Maria Hamilton had to say on the subject when we spoke to her.
Is she a baddie?
Well, I mean,
let's be real, I think she is a baddie. I think we will kill her, but I don't think it'll be this expansion. In fact, I think there are some other, much more likely candidates. So I rate Xal'atath's chances of being the final boss of the War Within a surprisingly slim 6 dead elves out of Black Empire. So if it's not Xal'atath, who is it? Alleria. Alleria is a character whose story and role in World of Warcraft has been the proverbial gun on the mantelpiece for a little while now. One of the OG heroes of Azeroth as a member of the Sons of Lothar, the crack team of heroes who prevented Ner'zhul's horde from taking Azeroth by destroying the Dark Portal from the Draenor's side, stranding themselves on a planet that then proceeded to basically blow up. But Alleria and husband Turalyon were rescued by the Army of the Light and proceeded to fight a 1,000-year war on the Legion on behalf of their light mummy Xera. Turalyon was star pupil obviously, but Alleria less so, getting herself mixed up with the Void under the guidance of Locus Walker, the very mysterious and extremely sus Ethereal. Her continued study and use of the shadowy arts got her basically thrown out of the Army of the Light, and as we progress through the Seat of the Triumvirate dungeon with her in Legion, zapped with voidy power by a shadowy Naru and going full on purple, before teaming up with us and Turalyon, take down Sargeras and end the Burning Legion. Good day's work. Now she is back in the spotlight as one of the main characters of the War Within, in even more purple, and hearing those whispers stronger than ever. Tortured by guilt about, things, and hunting Xal'atath through the opening of the expansion. She is angry. And you know what a woman being angry in WoW means, right? Yeah, she's a baddie now. No, but seriously though, could Alleria end up being the final bad of the War Within? Could she fall to corruption entirely, betraying her friends and family and planet, and need to be taken out, even if she was convinced she was doing it for the right reasons? Let's be honest, it wouldn't be the first time a Windrunner sister has done that. And as 1,000 Years of War tells us, perhaps one day she would fall to madness. Perhaps one day she would betray her allies. She was capable of it. In some ways, I really like the idea of Alleria falling to the Void and becoming an antagonist. It would help show just how dangerous the Void is, just how high the stakes are in the World Soul Saga. But I don't think I see it happening in the War Within. There is undoubtedly some big story coming up between Alleria, Turalyon, and their son, Arator, exploring how they're completely at odds, paths, and philosophies strain the limits of their very obvious love for each other. I kind of expect, as I have done since Legion, that Alleria's story may well end up with her falling to the void or resisting it, but either way, that story must surely be framed around her protecting Arathi. She would never, not in any possibility, not in any circumstance, harm her son. Even if he killed her for what she had become, she would accept it gladly. The weight of that truth kept her afloat, and she could feel the shadow's confusion. It did not understand the bonds between mortals. It did not understand that there were some things that could not be corrupted. But this seems to me a story which would be best suited to Midnight. Short story, A Whisper of Warning, has established that Arathi now lives in Silvermoon, home of the Sunwell, which will be attacked by the Void in the next expansion. And that just seems too delicious and satisfying a backdrop for the Light Void family soap opera to play out against. So I rate Alleria's chances of being the War Within final boss as a low 1 new purple tattoo out of divorce. Locus Walker. Okay, so if Alleria isn't going to be the final boss of the expansion, how about her mentor, Locus Walker? Locus Walker and Alleria met while they were both imprisoned by the Legion in the Twisting Nether, his wrappingless form teaching Alleria how to use the Void so that she could then use the power of Shadow to overpower their jailer, not that one, and escape. And he has been the sketchy Void Yoda to the eldest Windrunner ever since, convincing her that the power of the Void is absolutely fine to use as long as she keeps her sanity and doesn't succumb to it. Like, duh. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Locus Walker is the kind of guy who goes rummaging through your memories whenever he feels like it, takes sketchy void staffs off of void corrupted baddies we've killed, and it's him that characterized the differences between the light and void that we in the WoW lore community still treat as basic fact even today. You have known the shadow as nothing but horrors. The shadow sees the light in the same way. Neither viewpoint is true. Neither is wrong. The light seeks one path and shuns all others as lies. The shadow seeks every possible path and sees them all as truth. And I'm not saying that's not true, okay? I'm merely pointing out that our only real source for those definitions is the guy who loves the void and insists he's the only guy ever that's actually learned how to use it and be one with it and not actually be controlled by it. And I think it's probably healthy to bear that in mind. It is easy to see how Locus Walker could be the final boss of the War Within, especially when you consider the big spoiler that we know about patch 11.2. The spoiler, which I'm going to say right now, so this is your warning for that, okay? I'm not joking, this is a red bot, but data mined icon names point to an Ethereal raid, which definitely suggests the Shadow Guard Voidfall and Ethereals that we already know from the Dark Heart quests work with Xal'atath, and it definitely, to me at least, suggests that we will be going to Karesh, the broken and abandoned homeworld of the Ethereals. It is easy to imagine Locus Walker being our guide on that planet, much as he was during the Seat of the Triumvirate dungeon, only to turn out that he's using us to reach some greater power, just like he does in the Seat of the Triumvirate dungeon. He could be revealed to have long since fallen to the void and be in league with Xal'atath, a character he has clearly encountered before, as he says to Alleria in 1,000 Years of War when they are literally fighting each other because he wants to keep her from saving Turalyon. You have made a very determined enemy, Windrunner. I rate the chances of Locus Walker being the final boss of the War Within a getting warmer 6 bandages out of floaty void. It's very possible, but personally, I don't think he will be. I think he will be used as our guide through the ruins of Karesh, like I say, and I think the actual boss of the expansion will be a being that he knows all too well. First, Evie's got something she wants to say to you.
Hi everyone, it's that time again, time to update your website. And when I say your website, I mean my website. And when I say my website, I mean Squarespace. It's Squarespace time. I know we like to talk about making new stuff and pages and things on here a lot because I am a creator. But today I want to look at some of the ways that Squarespace makes maintaining our web presence easier, because sometimes that's all you need, a bit of maintenance, don't we all? Probably my favorite type of automatically updating content stream, and trust me, I have many of them, is the classic RSS feed. Honestly, nothing brings me greater joy than seeing an automatically updating widget. And in this case, it's our Apple Podcasts widget, which is 100% up to date at any given time, provided we actually do the podcast. Next, an unsung hero, the Squarespace invoicing tool. Yeah, gone are the days of scouring the internet for passably professional invoice templates that still look like absolute poo the minute you try to edit one. The process is simple. Add a client, add a line item, give them a little discount if you're so inclined, then boom, send it off and get paid. And finally, while I know AI can be a hot button topic, I will 100% enlist it to carry out my menial tasks every time. And look, you can even have Squarespace AI manage your entire brand identity. Just pop in a bit of info about yourself, choose your vibe, and hello there, fellow gamers. Wow, actually 100% on brand for us. I'll take it. And there you have it. Minimal effort from my side, and I've come away with a self-updating widget, an invoice that will be paid in food and wine, and a ridiculous brand identity in under 2 minutes. We're all winners here, and you can be too if you head to squarespace.com/Taliesin Evitel, where you can enjoy 10% off your first purchase of a Squarespace website or domain, or just use code Taliesin Evitel instead. That's squarespace.com/Taliesin Evitel.
Dementus. The reason that the inhabitants of Karesh got their corporal forms annihilated and now wander the universe as bodiless arcane blobs is because of this guy, Dementus the All-Devouring. He's a Void Lord. He opened portals to the Void and Twisting Nether to bombard the planet and take it over with his Void army. The player and ethereal buddies actually defeated him in the Burden Crusade, but it was kind of easy. I don't think anyone thinks that was anything other than a weakened echo of him that we actually defeated, to be honest. And as far as we know, he and his Void buddies are still living their best life under the Kareshi sunset as we speak. So if we are indeed going to Karesh for the final patch of the War Within, then it makes sense that a Void Lord might be the final battle. That's good enough logic by itself, but there's an even bigger reason why it looks nailed on for Dementus to be the big bad, and that's because of the huge lore reveal regarding the radiant echoes that we got in the recent Dark Heart patch. Those visions that important characters around Azeroth have started seeing, Thrall, Anduin, Jaina, Khadgar, Alleria, and others, and that supposedly come from the World Soul of Azeroth herself, all glowy and warm and soft of voice. Well, it turns out this has happened before. According to Locus Walker, his people were having these exact same visions of the Radiant Voice right before Dementus turned up and had his voidy way with their planet. So yeah, I know I literally just went on about how Locus Walker is sketch as all but let's take him at his word for a sec. He thinks Xal'atath calls herself the Harbinger specifically because he thinks the Radiant Song is itself a harbinger of impending voidy doom, like Dementus. Maybe exactly like Dementus. And I don't know about you, but a trip to Karesh, topped off with a battle against a fully powered Void Lord and his gang, that sounds like a pretty awesome ending to the War Within, as well as the perfect segue into the Void on Azeroth themed midnight. So I rate Dementus the All-Devouring a near certain all-devoured out of things that can be devoured. And that would usually be the end of the video. But of course, we have 2 more expansions to go after this in the World Soul Saga. So as a bonus ending section, here are some names I think you should be watching out for in the very near future. Odin. This absolute dickhead is a prime example of shitty Titan stuff being shit. So in a future where it seems quite likely we will be seeing the less friendly face of the Titans, it seems likely we'll finally have reason to get rid of this arsehole, and personally, I can't wait. Ashara. If we really are dealing with the Void for good though in Midnight, and if we really are uniting the Elven tribes in the process, the OG Elf Queen who fell to the Void should probably be making an appearance. The only question is, whose side will she be on? The Arathi Emperor of Light. Okay, so the Arathi in Hallowfall are from a huge empire in the west, presumably beyond the magical western storms. And the Arathi of Hallowfall are all very chill and cool, but the Emperor sounds a little bit more sketch. Anduin's worried about him, and Anduin loves light stuff, like that's his absolute thing. Faye and Lothar isn't exactly sure the Emperor would like us very much, and I read that as a baddie waiting to happen. I think it's most likely that Blizz are setting up a new western continent and the Arathi Empire of Light with an eye to events after the World Soul Saga, but it is totally feasible we could be making a trip there in Midnight or The Last Titan 2. We know very little about these next two expansions at this point, after all. Iridikron. You know, the instigator of all of this is conspicuously absent in the World Soul Saga, and I think he'll stay that way for a while yet. Iridikron claims that he is using the Void to his own ends, and I believe him, because we've seen him do similar with the Infinite Dragonflight already. If I had to bet, I'd say that we'll see this stony boy again for the first time at the very end of Midnight, in the very moment we finally defeat the Void, when he'll suddenly appear and reveal that while we were dicking about protecting the Sunwell, he was putting his real plan into action. That plan being to lure the Titans to Azeroth and then punch them in the face. And speaking of Titans, Aman'Thul. Aman'Thul is the big boss of the Titans, and in my personal opinion, is very bad news, to the extent that he is my prediction for the final boss of the entire World Soul Saga. I could elaborate on that, but that is for an entire future video. I just want to put his name on the table and say, on record, it's him. It's this guy. But what do you think? Are my predictions for the final boss of The War Within good shouts or pathetic whimpers? Who do you think will be the final raid encounter of the expansion? And also, who is joining my new club, the Protect Xal'atath club, where we will stand guard outside any raid instance where we'll have to fight Xal'atath and stop other players entering, because she is my everything, and I may not die for her, but I'm definitely willing to kill for her. Let us know in the comments below. And thanks for joining us today. If you like this video, don't thank us, thank our patrons, who give their actual, real-life money to make all of our work happen. And patrons, seriously, thank you, because without you, there would be a whole lot less Taliesin and Evitel. As always, there is an ad and sponsor-free version of this video on the Patreon page, which, or if we're lucky, will even be there a little bit early for you as well. If you didn't like it, downvote the shit out of it. Remember, my name is Dalaran. No, my name is Taliesin, from me and Evitel. Until next time, cheerio.